Good evening. Welcome to Thai PBS English News Service. I'm Supachong Klinswan. It's Father's Day here today in the Kingdom of Thailand, and earlier hundreds of thousands of people converged on Sirirat Hospital and on the Royal Plaza in front of the Ananta Samakom Throne Hall to watch His Majesty the King's traditional birthday audience. His Majesty the King is celebrating his 85th birthday today. Here's more from our reporter Udom Unhat.
Massive crowds of people from around the country converged on Sirirat Hospital, where His Majesty has been living since 2009, along Ratchadamnern Avenue and in the Royal Plaza in front of the Ananta Samakom Throne Hall to celebrate His Majesty the King's 85th birthday. The King emerged from the Sirirat Hospital amidst thousands of well-wishers chanting, "Long live the King," and then drove in a motorcade to the Ananta Samakom Throne Hall, where he made an appearance on the balcony at 10:30 a.m. His Majesty the King, accompanied by Crown Prince Vajiralongkorn, made a speech on the balcony thanking the people for their kind wishes and the unity which delighted and encouraged him. He also added that if Thai people are virtuous and show kindness to each other, the nation will be safe and stable. However, Her Majesty the Queen did not accompany the King for the grand audience due to a health issue diagnosed as a slight loss of blood flow to the brain. The Queen's condition is now gradually improving. Hundreds of thousands of well-wishers chanted, waved flags, and held up framed pictures of the King. Most of them had left home quite early this morning to make sure of the best view of the King. Nguyen Bun Sang, 67 from Bangkok, Bangkok, said that she left home at about 8 o'clock for the Sirirat Hospital. Even if she didn't catch a glimpse of His Majesty the King, she feels very happy to be close to him. She hopes he stays healthy and remains the soul of the nation forever.
I'm very happy because everybody loves the King.
What is the birthday wishes for His Majesty the King?
I
promise I will be a good boy
and good girl.
Niranut Tausiri, Palot Tausiri, and his family traveled to Sirirat Hospital to catch a glimpse of His Majesty the King. They both promised to be good kids as the present for the King. After the royal grand audience, tens of thousands of people converged on Sanam Luang to light candles this evening, saluting the monarch and to wish His Majesty the King good health. Meanwhile, millions of tiny lights have been festooned along Ratchadamnern Avenue to celebrate His Majesty's 85th birthday. These lights and decorations will be illuminated from now until the end of the countdown to 2013 on New Year's Eve. Udom Unhat, Thai PBS.
Long live the King. Officials have been rushing to repair a ruptured submarine electricity supply cable after damage to the cable left the resort islands of Samui and Phangan without power. A brand new power line, which will provide sufficient and reliable power, will be finished in March. Thousands of homes and businesses on Samui and Phangan Islands in Surat Thani province were still without electricity for a second day. Chanchai Bandit Sawapha, acting deputy governor of the Provincial Electricity Authority, says the 115-kilowatt submarine cable connecting a substation on Samui Island with the mainland was damaged. A 33-kilowatt line has been providing temporary power to some parts of the island instead. Chanchai says a brand new electricity system is scheduled to be installed and in operation by March next year. This system will ensure sufficient power for everyone on the resort islands. Earlier today, power was still only sporadically available on parts of the islands, but hotels and resorts have to rely on their own generators or candles. The wireless telecommunication network had also been knocked out. The Surat Thani governor says electricity will be fully restored tonight. However, the blackout did drive many tourists off the island today. Airport and ferry staff insist plane and boat operations were not disrupted by the power failure and no passengers were left stranded. The Economic and Business Forecasting Center at the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce revealed yesterday that the rise in the consumer confidence was the largest since flooding late last year. However, the Thai Chamber of Commerce Vice President Pumin Harinsut commented that the 300 baht national daily minimum wage will adversely affect the private sector, especially small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs. He then added that some suggestions which Kun Sarita Thanangkun has more.
Yesterday, President of the TCC and Board of Trade of Thailand, Pongsak Asakul, reported that Thailand's economic growth will be between 4 and 5% next year. But the good news is that the Center for Economic and Business Forecasting reports that the November's Consumer Confidence Index rose to 79.1 from 77.8 reported in October. But deep concerns remain among the business community about the nationwide implementation of the 300 baht daily minimum wage in the new year, and the concerns have prompted the Thai Chamber of Commerce Vice Chairman Pumin Harinsut to propose measures for the government to roll out to help SMEs.
Well, I think that the government should look into the tax structure and try to get those not in the tax program to come in, whereas if they come in, they have the benefit which the government will announce in very near future.
Pumin Harinsut also suggests ways for the private sector to deal with the minimum wage policy themselves.
If I'm export-oriented, I have a burden of transportation costs, logistic costs in Thailand, as you know, it's very high. So, logistic very high. In that 17-18% of logistic costs, 7 or 8% is the transportation. So if I'm export-oriented, I may have to think of relocate my factory to near the export zone, to save costs in order to compete with the international market.
As many business owners seem to be planning to relocate their production bases to Myanmar, representatives of TCC will meet with their Myanmar counterparts in the next 2 weeks to discuss potential investments in the neighboring country. Myanmar boasts an attractive investment environment thanks to its rich national resource and lower minimum wage of 75 through 120 baht per day. Sarita Thanangkoon, Thai PBS.
A Hungarian man suspected of killing his Hungarian business partner in Phuket province was arrested today. Police officers now are arranging to send the suspect back to Phuket. Meanwhile, police will issue an arrest warrant for one more suspect. The Hungarian national, Davis Mose, suspected of killing his Hungarian business partner, Peter Wright, in Phuket province, was detained at Mabun Krong Center in Bangkok today. Police asked the court to issue one more arrest warrant for a Thai-Hungarian suspect, Kawalka Lautrosh George, who is thought to have been an accomplice. In Phuket, the Scientific Crime Detection Division officers searched for additional evidence at a rented house in Panason resident village in Phuket province after police found that Davis Mose lived in the house on November the 23rd and 24th. Police say the house had been cleaned ahead of the inspection. However, officers found bloodstains on both the first and second floors of the house. Samples have been collected and will be laboratory tested. The results are expected in approximately 30 days. International NGOs fighting wild animal and human trafficking claim Thailand's law enforcement efforts to curb the problems are being hampered by corruption. Meanwhile, officials have run out of space to contain a large smuggled shipment of ivory and animals seized at Bangkok's airport earlier this week. A director of the Customs Control Division at Suvarnabhumi Airport says the smuggled ivory, tropical animal parts, and live turtles were supposed to be kept at the Department of National Parks, Wildlife and Plant Conservation, but there were no longer room to store them. Keeping the seized products in the airport's custom vault may not be secure. Freeland, an international NGO which fights human and animal trafficking, say these illegal acts will never end as long as corruption remains rampant.
We see very few arrests. When we do see arrests, it's maybe a small person, a truck driver, whatever, or in the case of this ivory that they seized back here, they never catch who's importing it. So the investigations don't go high enough up to the mafias or the corrupt officials behind the scene.
The live turtles were thought to be destined for China, where they are eaten. No kingpins of the smuggling operation were arrested, only truck drivers who claimed they thought they were carrying fresh fruit. Over 14 years ago, a consumer rights bill for Thailand was written and submitted to Parliament, which is where it remains to this very day. The prolonged delay in passing this legislation has now prompted consumer rights groups and other related organizations nationwide to launch an independent 15-member committee to protect consumer rights.
The Consumer Rights Bill has been pending in just the parliamentary committee stage for over 3 years. Consumer rights bodies are pressuring the government for consumer protection once again by organizing a forum with cooperation from the Foundation for Consumers, the Confederation of Consumer Organizations, and ally networks. And they now have established a 15-member committee for consumer rights protection. The panel consists of 7 experts in different fields and 8 representatives from each region. They were selected by consumer networks countrywide. The panel is chaired by Associate Professor Jiraphorn Limpananont, a former lecturer in pharmaceuticals at Chulalongkorn University. Jumpon Chunjitsiri, a law lecturer at Prince of Songkhla University, is the deputy chairman.
เราเองจะทำงานในทั้งประเด็นร้อนและประเด็นเป้าหมาย1 ปี
Jiraphorn Limpananont, the chair of the Independent Committee for Consumer Protection, said that the panel will attempt to solve the hot consumer issues, and its 1-year mission includes fair bank service fees, alternative energy, and a single standard healthcare system.
แต่เดิมเนี่ยทางกทช.มีสถาบันคุ้มครองผู้บริโภคในกิจการโทรคมนาคม
Dr. Prawit Lee Sathaphon Wongsa, a member of the National Broadcasting and Telecommunications Commission, was also present. He noted that the government doesn't pay enough attention to consumers' problems. Setting up this committee will help to solve their problems, he added. Udomlak Unhalekachit, Thai PBS.
Today, the death toll from a powerful typhoon in the Philippines rose to more than 200 people, and officials fear many more bodies could be found as army troops and rescue managed to reach the worst-hit villages, which had earlier been isolated by landslides, floods, and failure of the communication infrastructure.
At least 151 people died in the worst-hit province of Compostela Valley, including 66 villagers and soldiers who perished in a flash flood that swamped 2 emergency storm shelters and a military camp as Typhoon Bopha lashed New Bataan town. About 80 people survived the deluge with injuries, and an unspecified number of villagers remain missing in New Bataan, a farming town of 45,000 people that resembled a muddy wasteland of collapsed houses and columns of felled coconut and banana trees on the ground. An army official said 51 people died and 98 others were missing in nearby Davao Oriental province, which was first struck by the storm early yesterday. The typhoon then battered the gold mining and agricultural province of Compostela Valley before barreling across the south and central regions. Disaster response agencies reported 7 other typhoon-related deaths elsewhere. Hugh Adams, Thai PBS.
While Typhoon Bopha will have no impact on Thailand whatsoever, the Meteorological Department is warning that the average temperature will drop by a few degrees. The Met Office has confirmed that Typhoon Bopha will leave the Philippines and head out to the South China Sea before dispersing and will have no effect on Thailand. However, another active high-pressure cell is covering the upper northeast and will cause temperatures to fall by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius from tomorrow onwards. Other regions will get colder throughout the week. Strong winds are expected in many areas of the country as well. The Met Office is also warning of continuing fog and mist in the early hours of the day, which will limit visibility for drivers. So please do drive safely and enjoy the rest of Father's Day. I'm Subhachong Klinswan saying good night for now. Sawasdee krap.